Hi Nina, it's Ian here. Nina, this is that video I said I would create to sort of show you how I understand the process. So based on our conversation and our short messages, this is kind of how I see you capturing data from the data that you then get from that ROV info that's sent to you. Now you mentioned that you're not going to be responsible for the GIS on this project, although the GIS application QGIS is quite an easy one to get the hang of. So if you are interested in learning it, I can help you with that too, and it might be quite a useful tool going forward. But let me show you how I understand the problem or the process. So I imagine the ROV is going to travel on a path and be either taking video footage or still images, or maybe the still images come from the video footage and then the still image gets a location. So in what I'm not entirely sure what that information is going to look like, but this is how I imagine it might look. So if they've got a little path, let's say this little ROV is traveling through the water, and then every now and then I guess if it's taking video footage the entire time, it'll travel like this, but then you might want to attach a location to each of the images. So then you might get a table coming through that looks something like this. So what we've got is we've got the ID, the unique ID for each of the points, a date and time. Okay, this is actually a time field as well. There's a time value here too. And then the actual image. Now either there's, if it's going to be a still that's attached to that point, then that might be the image name, and then the longitude and latitude of that particular point. So then what they might give you, I guess, is a file like this with an ID for that point, which you would then go and study the images for. So if they then sent you the images, let's say, I'm just trying to grab a folder off a second screen here. So where we are, we over here, spatial images. So then let's say you had your still images like this, and you were then going to use the still images to make your specialized sort of description of the seabed. So then you would use that image to categorize or classify how much seagrass there is, etc. Now you're looking to be able to then attach your expertise or your knowledge for that particular slide or image to the GIS file. Okay, so we want to attach what you know about this. Like this may be barren, not seagrass, its coverage is only 10%. So you capture all of that, and you were talking about capturing it possibly in Access through a form, and then being able to link it back to the GIS. And if this is how it works, you could then either you could click on the various points and see what the coverage is if it's linked back, or you could even color these up according to the abundance of seagrass and then have these points colored up. Now that's if you get the data that way. If they are actually taking still georeferenced images, then you actually might need to, it might be slightly different in that you would be categorizing portions of the image that are taken directly above the seabed and then capturing actual pockets. So you would be able to then perform area queries. So now I haven't gone that route because I'm not entirely sure how the data is coming in. It would be great if there was some sample information from that ROV, then maybe I'd have a better idea of how to move forward. But let's just say, for instance, you were then going to look, and it's a fairly manual process, but the idea was that you were then going to go to these images and then categorize them based on the number of the image, etc. Then how it could work is like this. You could go to a Google form. We could create a Google form like this. Let's just make this slightly smaller. Okay, maybe, there we go. I just want to drag it smaller that way, make it bigger this way. Okay, so this is a Google form, and what we've got is an ID for that image from this table. I need to open that table as well. So let's put the table there, And let's see if the Google form opens, and then the folder. Let's click on that. I've gone backwards, so I need to start with this one, then go to my Google form, then go to that image there. Okay, so what we've got is we've got a form, which is, I mean, because it's Google Forms, it's basically online, so anyone can capture this. So you don't need access loaded on your machine. You can just put it out there. Someone in Spain or Argentina or wherever, if they were an expert, you could send them the image, and they would just be able to say, okay, based on what I can see here, okay, we're looking at image 2860, so that's ROV1. So we're just going to go ROV-1. Must be a number. Okay, let's just call that 1. Okay, we can use that. This is the linking number. So I would just need to possibly change the category of a data value here. But anyway, we can work with 1. So it's going 1. The image, okay, is 2860, and it's the JPEG. Okay. The video time. Now this is something I thought of. If, for instance, they didn't send you an image, but you had a location or a longitude and latitude for the video, and then a time for that timestamp, like a timestamp as the ROV is traveling through the water, the video is just scrolling on or playing, and then at the bottom there's a little time for how long the video has been running. So instead of a still, then what you do is you pause the video on that particular instance, and then you type in the time. Okay, so for the first one, let's say you can say it's okay 0.0 15 seconds let's say into the video. That's where that image is from. So that's, yeah, I wasn't entirely sure about this whole setup, so I thought about this. You could use a timestamp which would enable you to locate where in the video that portion was taken. Okay, so let's work with that. Okay, then you could have something like this. Now you mentioned there were various coverages. So we've got sparse, common, and abundant. So let's say, okay, there's common, there's quite a fair amount of seagrass, and then you can actually be more detailed and say, right, 55% of the seabed is actually covered with seagrass. So then that kind of corresponds to that. So you don't necessarily need this one. If you just have this one, you can work backwards in GIS or at a later stage and determine these categories based on the number or the percentages. And then lastly, I don't know, you might write seagrass is in decline or something, you know. It's in decline. If there's pollution, I don't know, you know. This is kind of where you would maybe have extra info that you add there. So now in Google Forms you can add anything here and any value type. You saw that one was a number. This is time. So you can add a single line text, or you can add memo style data. So I'm not sure if you used Google Forms before, but then once you'd finished working on that particular image, you would say submit. Okay, and then you can do that again. So let's say we went to, okay, now we're on 2. The image is 2862. Okay, the time into the video now it's traveled a little bit further, so now it's I don't know, 35 seconds into the video, and it's still common, and I would say from this image it's maybe 50%. So it's kind of, the seagrass in this case is declining as well. So you know, if you had something to add there, you could add something there as well. So then as you submit your responses, what will happen is you will eventually have a spreadsheet that looks like this. Okay, so this spreadsheet is recording all of those values that you are submitting, and what we can then do in GIS is at a later stage, if whether you're doing GIS or your client is doing the GIS, okay, got it, they'll be able to link back to that information from here. So let's do that. So now we can say, let's save this, let's download it as an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, there we go, it's downloaded. I think it's just gone to my downloads folder, not that one, this one. There it is, there's seagrass. So I'm going to cut that and just go stick it in my desktop spatial. This is just a folder I created for this example. There we go. Okay, so now let's say we've captured information. We want to link it back so that we can create some kind of map. So then it's quite an easy process. It's a case of adding that data that's been downloaded. So that spreadsheet needs to be added like this. So we add it. And I always just open up the attribute table just to make sure that the information has come through correctly. Okay, so this has been the stuff captured from that Google form. Okay, so now we're going to link it on that ROV ID. So all I do is I go properties, I go to join. Okay, I'm going to join to that table. I need the join field, which was the ID, and that's that ID. I was going to use that ID, but obviously I had the different value type, so it's that ID in this example. I can just change this to seagrass join, just a prefix, so that we know which columns are from the joined table, and we say OK. So now what we've essentially done is we've just joined it to that information. So we open up the attribute table, and we only captured 2 there, but then we can see, okay, here we go. So in this particular example, we've got a coverage of 50%, 55%. So you could continue and do that for a whole lot of other information. So let me maybe do that quickly. I'll pause the video, capture some more information, and show you what the GIS specialist can then do with that information with regards to creating a map. Okay, I'm back. So what I did is I just went back to Google Forms and I just captured another 8 records. So, and then I saved the project, and let's just see if it's updated. It hasn't updated. So let's just I need to re-export it. So I just need to go back into Google Forms. That's updated now. Okay, so this is just random information I've added. So then what I just need to do is just close this quickly. I just forgot a step there, so I'm just going back in here. And then I'm going to go download that Excel spreadsheet again. It can be the same one. And I just need to overwrite the original one. So downloads, there it is there. I'm going to cut that and then just make sure I copy over the top of the other one. So I'll delete it first. Oops, wrong way. So let's delete that. And paste that. Okay, so what I did is the other one only had 2 records. So I downloaded the new one, pasted it in there. So this should have 10 records now. So now when I open up this QGIS project, that new sheet that comes in should have the next 8 records. Okay, there we go. It's opened up. So let's have a look. If I open up that attribute table, there we go. So now it's referencing the latest download from that Google Forms entry. Okay, so I just threw a whole lot of other random information in here. So now if we have a look at this attribute table, because remember this one we imported and it's linking to the vector or the geometric data. I open up that one, it should link through and should all be there. Okay, so now what you could do, for instance, is let's say we want to color up on the percentage. We can do something like this. Where are we going? I'm going to symbols, graduated. I want to color up using the coverage score, and 5 is fine. Maybe change this color to something else. Let's go spectral, just as an example, and then classify. There we go. So maybe make these a little bigger so they stand out. So I'll go 4, and then just change this to no pen. Okay, apply and okay. There we go. So now we can see that the seagrass in this particular instance on this track is changing slightly as we move on that that track of the ROV. So now that's assuming that this is how the data is going to come through. So I guess what might happen is they'll do a big grid where they go up and down in a big grid formation like this. If that's the case, and then they do geo-reference those images, we can look at that. But like I said, if we can get some samples or a better idea of how that ROV data is going to come to you, we can take it from there. But that's kind of how I see it working for you. The other thing you can then do is you use a little tool in QGIS, and QGIS, this GIS software I'm using, I don't know if you know QGIS. It's an open source GIS software that is freely available. So unlike Access that you would need to get a Microsoft license for, this is freely available. So you can get GIS if you QGIS on your system if you want to. So what I want to do is just turn on a plugin called eVIS, and what it does is it links images to points. So I'm going to say, okay, that's fine, that's turned on. So now I need to go to my database, eVIS. eVIS, is it the browser? It was the ID tool. Oh no, it's the browser, I think. eVIS browser. Okay, so there's my options. So I'm connecting to the image file type. I want to make sure that I choose the right path here. So let's go and choose that path. Whoops. Copy address. Let's see if that works. Okay. Whoop. Okay, remember that. Is there anything else? Okay, there we go. So it's fairly simple. So now what you can do is you click on the various points and it should link to an image. Why is that not linking? Oh, because of the question marks. Okay, I need to change the image that it's linking from. So if I change this one to that one there, let's see if that works. Okay, so you see what happens now. So now we've got a situation where we can click on the various points in a map situation like this and see exactly what that seabed looks like. Okay, and that also might be useful in your report and that sort of thing. What else did I want to show you? There was not really much else I was going to show you, possibly just to show you how simple QGIS is. If you did want to then create a layout or a map for a report, let's say, we can go A4, okay, and then it kind of gives you the option to create layouts then, and then you add your data to it. This is your map view. Okay, it should render. Oh, rendering map eventually. You add a legend. Legend tells you you can remove a whole lot of stuff if you don't want to do it. Or see that at least. You can actually remove that as well. And I mean, you can really go to town here. So this is the place where you'd add your north arrows and tables and columns and what else? What else would you add? Maybe scale bars, etc., etc. So I mean, this is where you'd really dolly up the map and make it look good. So, and that is, I mean, it just takes getting to know, but it's quite powerful. You could even do stuff like you could add those images in and then link them, or basically display the ID per point, for instance. So maybe something like this. Let's close that down. If we go and label these points, so we'll go single label, we'll use the ID, or we could use I guess we could use the image. No, let's use the ROV ID. Okay, let's say we're using that. If we got that all right. Actually, I don't like that. Let's make it a bit smaller. Let's just use that ID, and then I'm just going to push it off slightly so that it's not on top of that point. Okay, there we go. So now if we go back to our view, which is down here. Okay, so we just need to refresh this. If I just move it, it might refresh. There we go. Okay, so there's our numbers for the various points, and then you could then go ahead and let's say add our various images in here like this. So now this, we go and look for the images on our system. But you kind of get the idea. You know where I'm going with this. You might have that image there, and then you could have a little text box there saying that is from ROV point 1, and make it white. Actually, what we can do, make it white. Okay, there we go, and then do the same for the other images. So I mean, like I said, you can really go to town on this and start putting a fairly decent report together with good visuals for the path. And that is, of course, if that is how it is going to be done, based on the ROV data that comes from your client. So yeah, that's what I got for you. Give me a shout and let me know if I'm on the right track or if I'm completely off base. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what your feedback is. Okay, chat to you later. Cheers.